Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Galucki. Welcome to the 514th Imagine Greater Buffalo program and our 136th YouTube Imagine Buffalo presentation, hosted by our wonderful Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. We're so glad you joined us today. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted and your video turned off. If you have a question or comment, please type it into the chat box and we'll go through them at the end of the presentation. We are recording this program so you can watch it again later on the Downtown Central Library's Facebook page and YouTube channels, and we certainly hope you share the link with others. Now, this program is created by Imagine Lifelong Learning and the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature. We cover each one of those on the 1st through 4th Tuesdays, but on the few months where you have 5 Tuesdays, we think of our investment in the community we're imagining. And that's today's focus. And so I'm going to bring in our co-host every 5th Tuesday, and that's J.D. Hartman, a founding member of the Western New York Sustainable Business Roundtable. J.D., why don't you introduce our speaker and get us started?
Thanks, Dennis, and thanks to the library for being our host, and Frits, our guest. Frits is passionate about many things as they pertain to today's subject matter, 3 things in particular. And number one is his drive to start new initiatives, whether they be grassroots movements, social networks, or new businesses. His passion for social ventures, and that's for-profit companies that have an underlying social mission, and his love for connecting people drives him. Frits has helped found and or build several companies in Boston, Buffalo, and New York City over the past couple decades. These include a digital media company, a business incubator, and an investment bank. You know, I could go on and on. Frits is well known in every community that he, lives and works in. He makes a really positive mark. How I know him personally is he's a very successful micro developer and has been an integral part to the success of the 5 Points neighborhood over on the west side of Buffalo. I happen to be the chair of the cooperatively owned business Urban Roots, what we believe is the only cooperatively owned garden center in the country. And Frits has really helped develop in an equitable way a thriving business and residential community. So enough said about Frits and all his talents and successes. Frits, why don't you take it away? Give us some insights into one of your really successful projects here in Western New York.
Okay, thanks, JD. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Dennis, and the library for hosting this great program. I'm just going to put on a timer because I want to keep this brief. Yeah, I'd say the summary on me is that I'm from Buffalo, and I left Buffalo in 1990 and went away to school and moved to New York. And I've been in New York and then subsequently Boston, and then back in New York, and then over the past 10 years in Buffalo part-time. And during that time, I've been involved with quite a few startups, either as a co-founder, as an investor, as an advisor. And when I came back to Buffalo, which admittedly is a very different ecosystem and environment for startups, I got involved with several as sort of an advisor, and then subsequently as an investor, and then I was running a company on the east side, and it's in the green manufacturing space. And in the course of that situation, opportunity, I came across a gentleman and his wife who had been brought to Buffalo, to the University of Buffalo, about 8 or 9 years ago now, with the mission to build the material science department for the university. Dr. Krishna Rajan and Dr. Krishna Chitra Rajan are the two individuals, and we had a real meeting of the minds, given my background in helping to start ventures, and Krishna's proprietary methodology, which he's developed over the past 40 years. I think it's worth noting that Krishna's father actually invented the reverse osmosis process. So he comes from engineering royalty, and the summary is that Krishna's methodology is what we would now term as AI, for materials selection, usage, and handling. So he was working with data, and I would say all forms of data, whether they be visual or statistical, audio. He can work with large amounts of data. He can work with small amounts of data. And he has developed a proprietary set of algorithms to help run that data through, analyze it, and make it useful. And he has largely run this and operated this in academic and scientific settings. And when we met, I said to him literally, how about we build a company around this methodology? I mean, data is such a hot topic right now. And, he said, honestly, I've had a number of people approach me about this. So why not? Let's try it. And so that was over 3.5 years ago. And I have some slides, which I'll just run through really quickly. And I'll just to give you a little bit of some visuals on what it is we're doing. So the name of the company is Materials In, which stands for Materials Informatics. So the area that we operate in is known as Materials Informatics, which is really the data and science of material science. And this is just an overview. So what our company does, again, is really commercialize his methodology, which has been developed in academic and scientific laboratories and settings. And what we do is we take data, again, all forms of data. We're not limited by the types of data, which is a real differentiator in terms of what we do compared to other companies in the space. And we use it to help companies look at the materials they're using, materials they're using in their products, the methods that they're using for producing the materials. And what we're particularly interested in, which touches very much into J.D.'s focus, and I think the focus of this segment is we're really interested as sort of it's an ethos of our company to help other companies move away from toxic materials in their products. So this is a little bit of a bird's eye. Let me see if I can collapse this so it doesn't block. There we go. This is just a bird's eye view of very scientific view, and I love this opportunity because most of the people we deal with in the business world are in the engineering departments or a more scientific area of the company. So my work in this particular presentation is to keep it very high level because I want you to be able to understand it. So essentially what you're looking at is us taking the data, and it could be data off of sensors of a machine. It could be spreadsheets that we've been forwarded. It could be data that we've actually also sourced from research publications, and we run them through this algorithm. You're seeing a visual algorithm, and what that does is it enables us to better understand what's going on with the materials that a company is using and struggling with, for instance. Let's see, there we go. So where we are with the company is we actually have our first 3 products built, and they all leverage the same methodology. Again, you have the data on the left-hand side, then you've got our engine or platform in the middle. The first product actually we've just gone to market with is being sold to and earmarked for the automotive companies. Many of them are scrambling, and I use that word purposefully, to ramp up their production of batteries for the electric vehicle market. And they're struggling. They're struggling with labor issues. They're struggling with supply chain issues. And what our product does is it actually helps with quality control by using data directly from the production line. And it's kind of a very pointed and specific product, which helps the manufacturers determine whether a weld on the battery is good or a weld is bad. And it literally just helps them save time, labor, materials, by helping determine that sort of binary conclusion. And right now we've got a strategic partner that's bringing this product to all the major automotive companies. So we have everyone from General Motors to Tesla to Toyota looking at this product. We just went live with it a month and a half ago in Detroit at the automotive show. The second product, which we're piloting right now, is in the paper industry. And it's a very similar approach where we're taking data from the production line and helping the operators determine whether they're optimizing the production. And there are a lot of different variables that they're working with. Is the machine running at the right speed? Is the blade thick enough, or sharp enough? And so we help them anticipate and predict these different variables so that they can keep the production as optimized as possible. So we're pretty excited about it. Krishna has built this department out at the University of Buffalo, and it's I wouldn't say in a short amount of time, but in the amount of time that he's been in Buffalo, it has become one of the most respected programs in the country. So we have a symbiotic relationship with the University of Buffalo. They're actually an equity holder in our company. And I think as he continues to build the recognition of that program, we're hoping that the growth of our startup is equally as impressive. So that's what I have for today. I'd love to hear some questions, commentary. If there's anything I discussed that didn't make sense, I'm happy to reapproach it. Thank you, J.D.
Yeah, thank you, Frits. I am fascinated. I have a front row seat to all of this. I too know Krishna and Chittarajan, and as I'll mention their academic credentials. I go to their annual symposium that they hold here in Buffalo, and it's not only the who's who from around the country, but it's from around the world. And so their reputation in academia is second to none. It's world class. And then putting their really great minds together with yours, Frits, to commercialize this is fascinating. And when I think of startups, I think, okay, how much am I going to make? We'll circle back to the positive impact it has and on the environment and social justice and whatnot. But is this a potential unicorn? Are you going to cash out at $1 billion plus or not?
Uh, well, I haven't thus far with any of my startups, but this could be, what I say about this opportunity is that it has been by far the slowest to market that I've experienced in any of my startups before, but by far the most significant. For us as an early company to be in front of the likes of General Motors and Tesla and Toyota looking to pilot with us is pretty unheard of. Now, I will say that we did take a very specific go-to-market strategy, and our go-to-market strategy is to bring our increasing set of products and tools to larger entities to help them service their customers. So it's called a channel partner strategy, and it's a slower go-to-market strategy. But our partner in this instance is Buffalo Manufacturing Works, EWI, and they're the ones who have brought us to these major car companies.
That's great. You had mentioned early on the ecosystem here in Buffalo. It's different everywhere, whether it's out in Silicon Valley or Boston, New York, and Buffalo's done well over the last, I don't know, it's 5, 7, 10 years. So great to hear. There's UB, there's materials, informatics, there are materials in EWI and other components of that ecosystem. And hey, I'm sitting at the Innovation Center downtown, and in fact, a unicorn here, ACV, is my neighbor. So it does happen, and good luck with it, because it takes a little luck too. Who would ever thought that, like, selling used cars would go public at $1 billion+ valuation? So you guys have a shot. Let's talk about the impact. I like how you expanded materials into materials informatics. Am I far off in comparing that to bioinformatics? I think most people are a little bit more familiar with that. And, cracking the human genome just opened up really just this, boundless universe of healthcare solutions. And if we unlock the genome of materials that we use, whether it's in my pen, because there's metals and plastics and otherwise in there, some toxic, some not, is it that type of opportunity that similar to the bioinformatics?
It's looking not only at the materials that are used, but the derivations of those materials, and it's all done through data. So
yeah.
It is really the sort of hybridization of material science and data science.
Yeah. So and then I'll ask the library, Joy, and all if there are any questions from the audience, and please step up. I see some names I know on there, and know that you're not shy. So put some questions in the chat, and we'll get to them in a minute or two.
And I wanted to speak just to the environmental aspect of it, and I think it's really worth noting that Krishna's methodology is so respected. Firstly, he's in every major textbook. He speaks at every major conference globally. He's a true thought leader in the space and has been for many years. And interestingly, last year he got notice that the environmental the EPA, he had adopted one of his methodologies without even notifying him. So now that methodology is a core tenet of how the EPA looks at nefarious materials, chemicals like PFAS, which is a perfect example. So we use that as part of our marketing to say that our co-founder, COO, Krishna Rajan's methodology has been adopted by the EPA, and it's pretty significant.
Let's talk a little bit about the environment. Whether it's the ecosystem here in Buffalo, or maybe some of your end users, in the automotive industry, do they care about the environment, or is it just hey, the market for electric vehicles is, that train has left the station, we better get on because it's happening and it's going to accelerate? Or do they care, just from your perspective in this chain of commercializing intellectual property, do people care, or are they in it for the money? Not that they're mutually exclusive, they are not.
So increasingly, they're not mutually exclusive. Increasingly, they're intertwined. So we have a range. You have companies that are, you've got the Patagonias of the world, and the REAs and the like that are inherently and authentically invested in improving the environment. And then you have oil and gas companies that greenwash, and everything in between. So what I will say is that there are there are market forces that are driving a big shift in this. One is the legislation that passed by the Biden administration, the Infrastructure Act, is one of the greenest pieces of legislation this country has ever passed. And that has spurred such an interest in, all things environmental, because there's money behind it. So there's that, combined with shareholder activism, which JD knows all about, which is increasingly prevalent. And these are large shareholders. These are pension funds. These are, huge interests that are demanding that companies improve their sustainability practices or reduce their. I mean, sustainability can be a challenging word, because that connotes that you're keeping something in place. You're sustaining it, when a lot of companies need to actually reduce their toxicity levels in products, et cetera. And so we use sustainability as a term, carefully, but so the shareholder activism is a real phenomenon. It's an important dynamic. It's increasing. And I think finally, I was at Climate Week in New York City last year, and, it was the hottest summer on record. There are all these climate issues happening around the world that are unprecedented. No one can deny it anymore. Or let me just say, it's getting harder to deny the reality around the situation. And so I just think that all those things combined. Climate Week is this convergence of all the major power brokers around the world who are dealing in, with all things environment. And it was, there was such a palpable shift from previous years where things were actually getting done. There was actual movement. It wasn't a lot of discussions and high level thinking and all that. It was actually, rubber meets the road implementation of things that are going to help save the planet. So it was really encouraging.
Cool, thanks. So Joy, any questions from the audience?
Yep, we've got two questions. The first one is from Mark, and he's saying, thank you, JD and Frits. We're working a sustainable aviation fuel project in Western New York and need to identify carbon density for IRA incentives. Is the business model on a per project basis or a subscription for services?
So it's a great question. We are a tech-enabled consulting solution presently. So meaning we could take on a project. Where we are going to go with it is to be a SaaS-based model, which is subscription and the like. But we have several companies that we're working with on a project basis right now. So we'd love to chat with you. I'm happy to get you my contact info.
Before the next question, Mark is a player in this field, this startup and direct investment field. So if I can put you two together, let me know. Thanks, Joy. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. I think, Frits, we want to make sure that if you put in the chat or one of your slides has your contact info, that would be helpful. And then another question we have from Jerry, and I know you talked about some of this, but maybe there's something to add to it. What is advantageous about being located in Buffalo?
Well, for us in particular, it is the direct connection with the University of Buffalo, the lower cost of overhead, it's funny. I've been in New York, as I said, I've been in New York City since the mid 90s, and on certain levels, I feel like the star in New York is really on the descent for me, and whereas I feel Buffalo is really on the ascent. I come here, I split my time monthly, and I come here, and there's so much. Everyone's so ebullient here and so positive, and I don't know that I always feel that in New York. So I think culturally it just feels great to be here. And I love an underdog. So I'm always interested I'm really interested to be invested here and to see this grow here. And boy, would I love for this to become a huge, successful company and, enrich lots of local people and employ local people of different communities and help position Buffalo as more of a center of startups. I mean, it really is. I went to the 43 North presentations a few weeks ago, and it's just remarkable what's been built by that organization and all of those people. So if we can contribute to all of that, as JD knows, as Ann knows, I'm involved in a lot of different things in Buffalo. I love this city. I also love New York City for different reasons. So luckily I don't have to have it be an either or, but I want nothing more than for Buffalo to reclaim its position as one of the great cities in this country.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Any other questions, Joy?
Nope, those are the only questions, but that was a fabulous answer. Thank you.
Yeah, last one from me. Frits, we're both members of the Western New York Sustainable Business Roundtable. For those of you maybe new to the program or not heard me say, look, its membership ranges from my company, Signity Financial, to Materials In, to M&T and Rich Products. So big and small and in between. What's your sense of the Sustainable Business Roundtable? For me, one of the values is it exists. It is a forum. Does it provide you guys with any tactical support, or is it more, not spiritual, but anyway.
So to disclaim, we're actually not members now.
Oh.
We were members, and I served on the marketing committee. What I really appreciated the most about it was that I was connecting with a lot of others locally who cared about the same thing, and or had a similar passion around environmentalism. We aren't currently members because I'm here so limitedly. I couldn't be more involved with it, but we will become members again because I really do believe in the mission of the organization and what they're doing. So I think there's a lot of room for growth with it. I think where they're some of the strategic plans I've heard sound really exciting. So we'll be members again soon.
Thank you. That's all for me. Thanks again, Frits. Really appreciate it.
J.D., Frits, thank you. Hold on. Now let me wrap this up a little bit. I've never mentioned this on the air, but all of us who have studied our history a little bit have heard the line that at the turn of the 19th to 20th century, Buffalo had more millionaires per capita than any other city in America. It was a line we all heard. Yet, in most of our lifetimes, we've heard quite the opposite. Buffalo, one of the poorest cities by some measurements. This whole series, this whole Imagine Buffalo series is somewhat rooted in trying to say, wait a minute, we are rich in some ways that we may not be measuring. Our cultural institutions, the whole fabric of the community. Fritz, just what you pointed out, the sense of being in Buffalo. I'm not sure how else to put it other than that. The community, the city of good neighbors, whatever it is, it exists, and it's plowing its way through the times we're living in. So I developed two themes. One was to imagine Greater Buffalo as a premier cultural and nature center. But the other one is the focus of these Art of Investing Week 5 presentations, and that's to imagine a healthy, wealthy, and sustainable community. I think the three go together. And you touched on the sustainability. Is it a word of the times, or is it a reality in how we think? Literally, how we educate from pre-K to going upward through the university, and the spin-offs that the university is now finally generating. And you're an example of that in partnerships and other companies and venture capital programs and whatnot. So creating to become that healthy, wealthy, and sustainable community, my hat's off to you for you doing your part. But do you want to comment at all? Is that your sense of how we're moving, and maybe that's what gives you that positive vibe of Buffalo?
Well, listen, I think Buffalo has some significant major challenges. From embedded racism to segregation to poverty. So, when you talk to someone who's from the Delaware district versus the East Side, those are two very different realities. So I'm not going to discount that. Having said that, I have always taken exception when people say Buffalo is one of the poorest cities in the nation. Do you know why that is? It's because of our square miles that we measure the city from. If we were, if you look at Cleveland or Pittsburgh, they're in the 180s, 190 square miles. Ours is 40. So literally, if we annexed Kenmore, Williamsville, Amherst, we wouldn't even be in the bottom 20. So it is merely the actual geography. That doesn't mean that we don't have incredible poverty. We do. So I think it's a little bit of a self-perception and a national perception problem that we're dealing with. We all know Buffalo is a major city. We all know it's exceptional. And now we're reclaiming it. And I get particularly driven by seeing that uncovered every day in this city, whether it's a building that's been restored, or discussion of removing the Kensington and putting it back into a parkway, or removing the Scajaquada, or the new AKG building, or the East Side Avenues project where, I'm on the Board of Preservation Buffalo and Niagara, and we're helping to stabilize all the commercial thoroughfares heading out to the East Side. These are all turning this back into an incredible city.
I'm good answer.
Right.
Glad I asked the question. And JD, again, thank you. And thank you. Frits, I know Krishna was scheduled to be here and a conflict came up. So you did a great job of saying the types of technology that he would be talking about very specifically, I'm sure, and making it understandable to us folks that aren't quite in that field. So thank you. Not an easy task.
It took me 3 years to understand what he does. So.
Well, this was your 20-minute presentation to share it with us then, and you did a great job. Thanks, Frits. All right, folks, next week we have an interesting situation where I'm going to have a two-part program. So next week will be the first part. We're going to have, and I had him some years ago, and he's an example. I want you to see the visuals that he'll show. Keith Burrich is retired professor from Canisius University, and he's an author. And next week, he's going to be doing the book he wrote first, The Thomas Indian School. This is right here in our backyard, the Gwanda area, and it's a fascinating history. And it helps us better understand today by looking back at that reality. And then in 2 weeks, on November 14th, he'll be speaking about his most recent book, We Remain: Race, Racism, and the Story of the American Indian. So join us for both of those if you can. I think it'll be noteworthy in our current discussions about life living in Buffalo and America and the world. So I'm Dennis Galucki. Thank you again for joining us. Be well and good day.